Hello and welcome to the National Center for Rural Road Safety's second April 2025 webinar. Today's webinar is entitled Low Volume and Rural Road Safety. My name is Jamie Sullivan, the Director of the National Center for Rural Road Safety, and we're excited to have you with us all today. We have just a few webinar logistics for you. As always, our co-hosts for today's webinar is the NL-TAPA Safety Work Group, so just want to say thank you to them as well. Today's webinar will be about an hour and a half in length. We do have closed captioning available. To do that, you will toggle on the CC caption button that you can find on the bottom right hand of your screen. We also will be recording today's webinar, and within a week, it will be available on our website, ruralsafetycenter.org/webinar-archive. For today, we do have a question and answer pod that you're able to use to both ask questions of our presenters and also alert the organizers of any technical difficulties you may have. So go ahead and put anything that you would like to in there for us, and we will respond to those as we can. Additionally, we do have handouts available for download of today's presentations. You can find those in the top right-hand corner of your screen. We will have a feedback form at the end of the webinar. As always, we would like you to fill that out if you can. The most important part of that is to let us know what additional topics you'd like to hear this year for our webinars. That way we make sure these webinars address all of the things rural that you are interested in. And lastly, if you routinely get certificates of completion and CEUs from us, I do want to give you one little update on this. As always, it'll take about 4 to 6 weeks after the webinar for you to receive that certificate of completion. Now, instead of a PDF form for the CEUs, there will be a link in the email for you that you can then apply for the CEUs through Montana State University. However, you must now fill this link out within 4 weeks of receiving the email from us. Failure to do that within 4 weeks may result in the university no longer being able to provide those CEUs. So just keep that in mind when you do see that email from us. Please respond to it as soon as possible. I have a few updates for you from Federal Highway Administration and the US DOT as well. So we want to make sure you know that the Safe Streets and Roads for All programs notice of funding is now open. The deadline for submission for that is June 26, 2025 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find more information using this QR code or the links. Again, this is one of the PowerPoints that you can download as a handout so that you'll have all these links available. They did recently do 3 webinars, one on the planning grants, one on the implementation grants, and one on the demonstration projects as well. So if you're interested in looking at the recordings of those, just head over to their website. They do have those recordings available in case you have any questions and want to find out more information. We also wanted to let you know that NHTSA has just released last week a new guide called Resources to Prevent Impaired Driving in Rural Areas. So this is brand new, hot off the presses, and a great resource for everyone to take a look at to see what new strategies might be in this resource. And lastly, Federal Highway Administration will be holding a webinar on Wednesday, May 14th from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time on making rural roads safe for all. They'll be talking about strategies to implement low-cost safety improvements, conducting road safety audits, developing state-local partnerships to accelerate project delivery to improve road safety, and then to identify available programs and resources to improve safety and transit services in rural communities. So if any of those interest you, please register for that webinar, either using this link or this QR code. And then today we have 2 experts in low volume roads with us to talk to us. We're going to hear both about what the Iowa Highway Research Board is doing in low volume roads, as well as the Transportation Research Board's Low Volume Roads Committee. And so our first presenter today is going to be Lee Bierke. He has 30 years experience as a county engineer in Iowa and has been an active member of the Iowa Highway Research Board. He is the Iowa Secondary Road Research Engineer, and I'm excited to turn over the first part of our presentation to Lee.
Thank you, Jamie. Get my screen shared here. Can you see that?
Just your desktop.
Perfect. I want to make sure I went to the right screen before I wound this thing up. Now you
Perfect. Now
should
we,
have it.
yep.
All right. And good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Lee Bierke. I am the Secondary Roads Research Engineer in the state of Iowa. Hopefully you'll find this somewhat entertaining and informative. If for those of you who know Vanessa Gertz or Brian Moore, I am not the presenter they are, but I'm holding the position they held ahead of me, and hopefully I will do them justice in this. In my background, I'm currently a secondary roads research engineer. I've been in this position for about 2 years. I spent a lot of time in Winneshiek County as the engineer and the assistant. And the one great thing about being in Iowa and not being in Iowa or an Iowa State grad, I don't have to worry about being picked on because I went to a real school in Wisconsin. Iowa Highway Research Board. It was established in 1949, and it was actually established by a group of county engineers that went to the legislature and said, we need a solution to some of our problems, and we need researchers to help us do it. And the legislature thought that was a really great idea. So their first meeting was held in July of 1950. And so we are going to be celebrating that as their 75-year anniversary of the research board. So we're pretty excited about that. We'll get into some things that we're doing with that, but a little more about the board is that they do serve as the stick for the state of Iowa, and any aid grant application that's going to be submitted by the state goes through the research board for approval. So if there's multiples, they decide which one goes, and same for the stick. They decide which ones go. The makeup of the research board, there's 15 members. Each member has an alternate. 6 of them are county engineers, 1 from each DOT district. There's 2 city engineers, and then the chair of the civil and engineering department for both Iowa State University and the University of Iowa. The DOT has 4 engineers that sit on the board, and then the TRB representative for Iowa is on the board, and that is also a county engineer. The city, county, and the DOT reps have a 3-year term. At the end of their term, the alternates move up, and then the Iowa County Engineers Association appoints new alternates. The TRB rep and the 2 university chairs hold their seats on the board until such time as they give up either their seat as the chair or the TRB rep. So they, again, serve indefinite terms. The research board is housed under the Research and Analytics Bureau of the Iowa Department of Transportation, and Vanessa Gertz is the state research engineer, and she oversees their activities to make sure the board's getting what they need and moving along with the research as the board wishes it to go. The funding breakdown. Again, when this was started with the legislators, they took an off the county secondary road, which is the county's money from the road use tax fund. And they did that when they created the board. The cities came along in 1989, and the legislature just took a flat number of $200,000, and that number has not changed since 1989. That is something we would really like to change, but it does require an act of the Iowa legislature, so it's not as easily done as we would like it to be. The Iowa Highway Commission allocates money from the DOT's primary system funds to the research board. You can see the value there that changes. It's not guaranteed. The DOT could stop recommending it, or the Highway Commission can just say we don't want to do it. But that's how it's been running for quite some time. Typically, projects are funded 40% out of the state funds, 50% out of the county funds, and 10% out of the city funds, but that does not mean it has to go that way. Currently, we have one project that we're working in Camp Dodge down by Des Moines, where $500,000 is being spent on base stabilizations, and that is solely being done with county funds. The roadways in Camp Dodge are all granular roads that resemble county roads, but they're using it for military function. So we found it to be a great place to just test our stabilization ideas, and I mean, really test them because they're putting big equipment on it. But that only really helps the county, so the cities and the state don't put any money into that. Over the past 25 years, over 400 projects have been done through the Iowa Highway Research Board, totaling roughly $60 million. Now that is also bringing money in from other sources as matching, or we're matching other projects. And a good percentage of the projects that have been done through the research board are in practice in the state of Iowa still today. Solicitation, this is how we kind of identify some of the projects that we do. There's a prioritization program which is very internal with the DOT. There's projects of merit or emergency projects. An example of that is the AASHTO WARE BRR, which is bridge rating. Iowa is switching over to that, and really had no way to figure out how we were going to fund getting all of the standard bridges, which Iowa has a tremendous amount of them, of standardized bridges that, you can select those as your bridge project, and that goes into your plan set, and the contractors, just by reading the front page, know exactly what they're building. And so we have to rate all of these, and we're using research funds to get that done, so we can really get into the BRR software. We have multiple phase projects. They're just continuations of one, and we found what phase one did, and we really liked it, so we moved on to a phase two. Some of them, may have 5 or 6 phases, depending on what's going on. Some of them are just novel ideas that we were given, and maybe kind of outside of the box types things. We don't really, say we're not going to listen to anyone's idea. We'll listen to anyone's idea. It's just we may not take it, but we might. You never know. And again, I touched on this, outside funds or matching funds from other entities or universities or things like that influence, what we decide to do for projects. We work on a trimester cycle, which means you can submit an idea year round. It is always open, but at a trimester point in the year, we bring the projects forward and look at what got a lot of backing versus what didn't, and try to keep things moving as to what's going to be a viable project and what's not. Projects advance to the board if they get high rankings through the ideas portal, and if not, they might just never make it out of there, but or they could get to the board and the board just doesn't want to move them anymore. Proposals submitted to the board are reviewed at the next scheduled meeting from the trimester point. You have to get a vote of 8, majority rules, and once a project has been established and is going to move forward, everything's pretty standardized. If you've ever looked at research across the U.S. for transportation, they're all kind of standardized, and we follow the same forms and reports. This is a rough breakdown of what we try to put projects under. Some projects fall under multiples, and that's completely okay. But for future archiving and pulling projects out again, we try to be pretty consistent in what we title them under. So I've been doing this for 75 years. If I want to go back 60 years, I kind of have a good idea where these projects should fall if they exist when I'm trying to find older work, because we do sometimes research the same thing multiple times because new things have happened and new ideas have come out, and so it's not uncommon to see a same or similar project happen many years later just because of new data or ideas. The Iowa County Engineers Association, in 1913, the Iowa legislature said that Iowa counties must have a registered professional engineer on staff by name. You cannot use a consulting firm. You can use someone who is in a consulting firm but they must be a principal of the firm and be named specifically. If you ask any of the county engineers in Iowa, they'll tell you it's one of the best things we've ever done, because things we have to deal with, it is very beneficial for the counties to have a licensed engineer on staff. We have an executive board made of 11 voting members. Like the research board, there are 6 district representatives. They all have an alternate. And then there's also a president, a past president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. And those are the voting members. We also have many committees. You name the topic, we probably have a committee for it. Sometimes we ask ourselves, is this another committee just to have a committee? But we serve on just state committees and national committees with the National Association of County Engineers. In 1998, a county engineer named Steve DeVries came up with an idea of a service bureau for the county engineers. And we went to the legislature again and said, hey, we would like to fund this. And they took money again off the top of the county share of the road use tax fund to fund this idea. And what it ended up doing was writing software that the counties would use to help them do their jobs. Our biggest, I guess our flagship software we've written is called TPMS. It's Transportation Project Management System, where any project that is let through the DOT, the counties develop it with this software. And that software makes sure you're getting through all your checks and balances, and you're receiving all your clearances and all these things that you need to do to get your projects through. The cities in the state of Iowa are now required to use it. Conservation, if they're using, I used to be called enhancement funds, I can't think of what it's called now, but they have to use this, and if it's a consultant's working for someone other than the DOT, they use it. So it's been a huge help in county engineering in Iowa. Because of how the legislature controls what the DOT does, the County Engineers Association actually has 5 employees. I am one of them that is contracted to the DOT because the DOT can't hire them. And that's been very beneficial to the locals, that we can put an employee in there that the DOT can use to work on our local projects directly and help keep them moving and getting help in whatever manner we need. One of the big things that the Service Bureau does is now we have a grants coordinator, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. The IIJA, or bill, when that came through, that released a lot more money and a lot more programs. And the Iowa County engineers looked at this, and we're kind of greedy, and we wanted to get as much money as we could, and realized quite quickly that this was not something we could handle how we normally have handled things. We made a committee, but the committee even realized it's just too much for us to try to manage. So we started looking for a grants coordinator, someone to spearhead this, stay on top of it, give the county engineers a push when they need it, because every county engineer has 1,000 things going on. Sometimes they aren't prioritizing what they probably needed to. So we hired a grants coordinator. Her name is Lindsay Schroeder, and she is spectacular. I just can't say enough great things about her. Since she's been on, we've received 2 RAISE grants, an SS4A planning grant, 2 BIP grants, and we've had others that we have been denied. And I believe there's still one pending. Not positive on that, but I'm pretty sure. But Lindsay is the one that keeps control of all of that. The idea with DOT also added a grants coordinator who's a Service Bureau employee, because cities and counties are applying for individual grants, and they just needed more staff to try to handle all of this money. So we hired her in January 23. She administers, manages, and assists with all of that. If a county wants to apply for something specific for their county, she will give them guidance, but she doesn't really get involved in those projects. This is only the group projects that are statewide that she gets in. That's her email there. If you've got questions about any of the grants that you're not sure of, she might have an answer, because she reads them in depth, and she's just really good. I just can't say enough about her. One of the big things that we did pull off was getting an SS4A for the entire state of Iowa. Starting in 2015 and going in through 2018, counties started developing local road safety plans, and we were doing that through the Iowa DOT's Traffic and Service Bureau. And we got 59 of them done, but it just kind of fell off with interest for whatever reason. And we were using state funds to do that. But we decided that, with the SS4A, what we needed to do was get every single county a safety action plan. Some of them had them, but by definition, they were outdated. They weren't any good. And so we wanted to get those that had them updated. So when that NOFO came out, we started working on putting that together, and lo and behold, we were able to get a grant awarded. We put in for all 99 counties, but it didn't end up going that way. We had to get all 99 boards to back this by resolution. And basically that was their commitment that if awarded, they are going to uphold their costs, their involvement, their requirements, because every county was at risk if one county decided to bail. And we just couldn't allow that to happen. As I said, 2 counties did not participate. Polk was one. That's the Des Moines metro area. They went with their MPO, and Fayette County had updated theirs on their own, and they actually just right away went out and applied for a implementation grant of over $15 million, and they were awarded that grant. So it did pay off for them to kind of break on their own. But well, if you've ever met Joel, he's an overachiever, and you can tell him I said that. But in the grant, Mahaska County is listed as the lead applicant. So everything goes through Mahaska County. There is an agreement with the Service Bureau for the financial side of it, and the Service Bureau sends the bills out to the different counties when their work's been done for them and they need to pay for it. And but on the grant, Mahaska County is the one that's on the hook for everything. But we were awarded it on the January 31st of 23. The agreement was signed. Kimley Horn was selected as the consultant, and they had done a lot of our safety action plans prior, so they had a lot of the data already. They had worked with 59 counties. I mean, they just were the natural selection for it, and they started in October of 23, and they are on track to finish it by January of this year, or July of this year, sorry. And it's gone very, very, very well. This is just kind of a breakdown of who had responsibilities for all of this. Again, Mahaska County, they're on the hook for everything. They do have a lot of support behind them, but they are the ones on the hook. Lindsay is the center point of contact. She really makes sure everybody knows what everybody else is doing, and they're doing the right things at the right time. And Kimley Horn is just moving forward just very well, honestly, in getting all of this done. I mean, that's a lot of things to coordinate, and they've done a very good job. The strategy we had behind it is there were 3 project teams that Kimley Horn was going to create, and we divided them into districts. They would support the overall project and oversee the what data was pulled in, how it was analyzed, and what they could get out of it. And but the counties were divided into 2 phases, and phase 2 is done, or phase 1 is done, and phase 2 is almost done. So, and we based a lot of this on questionnaires that we sent out, because again, some counties were much farther along than others were. Some had absolutely nothing as far as a safety action plan or data, and obviously they dropped to the second phase while that data could be collected. But the ones that had a lot of good data and plans already in place, they went on the first phase. Once you have that safety action plan, then you can go after the implementation funds like Fayette County did. The DOT, by the SS4A rules, cannot be involved in an SS4A grant. DOTs do give us help, they give us data, but really they have no oversight, no responsibility to it. It's a direct agreement with FHWA, and as a county or a group of counties, you are dealing directly with them, which is a little different than what we've always done in Iowa. Usually every federal agreement or grant, DOT is oversight and very heavily involved. But with the SS4As, that's not the case. And so it was kind of uncharted water for us, but it's been going well. The Iowa Highway Research Board, getting back to them, we've done 75 years worth of research, and a lot of it is safety related. There are, your pavement projects and, base stabilization and all these types of things, but we do have almost anything you could think of when it comes to transportation being done through the Iowa Highway Research Board. Currently, TR 828 is a low-cost safety strategy for our unpaved system. Roughly 2/3 of the road system for the counties is unpaved. There is a lot of gravel, a lot of dirt. We have true river gravels all the way up to crushed stone. In some places, combinations of that. And so this project is currently going. Our test sites for the various ideas we've come up are being picked as we speak. Just these past 2 weeks, we've been doing a lot of back and forth trying to decide what strategies we're going to try in different places. And the main part of this is just to slow the traffic down, get control of them so they're driving appropriately for the conditions they're in and on the roads they're on. TR 792, this is probably my baby project. In 2008, Iowa had its record flood, and we lost a ton of infrastructure, roadway and transportation infrastructure. And I had one watershed that I saw where these drawdown structures had been put in. Vast majority were on private properties, but we did some using the road beds as the impoundment structure. These are not permanent pool, these are drawdowns. And that watershed was damaged, but not nearly as badly as the others. And that's what started me thinking we have to figure out how to do more of this across the state. And so that's where this project has come from. The phase 1 is completed. We show this works. We know how to do it. We can do it anywhere in the state now. Thanks heavily to the Iowa Flood Center. And so that became a really big project. And we're hoping to get our phase 2, and there'll be more phases of this one as we go. Corn-based de-icers. Iowa's a corn state. We're trying to come up with ways to get rid of the ice and make our roads better in the winter. That was just completed, and there's been some side projects because this research showed us things that these de-icers can do beyond just melt ice, and it's very beneficial. And so we've been pushing on with those projects. Sustainable dust suppressants on gravel roads. Again, corn-based, and we actually had the researchers patented this process and this material, and Iowa now can use it. We don't have to pay royalty side of it because we paid to have it done. So that's a definite benefit for us to try to subdue all of this dust that this 60% of our station or our system shows. Unticketing. I thought this was very interesting. This was a project where we just looked at, instead of pulling people over and ticketing them every time they do something wrong, let's pull them over and reward them when they're doing things right. And the project went very well. It was heavily done in the Mason City area, and it was to incentivize drivers to drive appropriately instead of penalizing you when you drove poorly. We've had so many projects with bridge preservation to make them longer and or make them last longer, and you don't have to replace them or downgrade them, so you're sending traffic on roads you really wouldn't because they can't cross a bridge. We've done an aid grant where we're collecting modulus data, which is the stiffness of the roadways on all of our gravel roads, so now the county engineers can actually know what their roads are as far as structurally sound or their strength, and then they can apply better safety practices to the roads that can benefit from that practice instead of guessing and trying to say, well, this is what my problem is. Well, now we know because we have this data. Organosilenes, that it's the Rain X for soil. It doesn't allow the soils to absorb the water, so the water just migrates out, and so your roads don't get soft, they don't get boggy, you don't get thrown because all of a sudden one set of wheels catches a real soft spot and it throws the car. That has been very interesting, and we've been doing that project with Michigan State University. Self-heating electrically conductive concrete. There actually is a test spot in Iowa City. It's a bus stop where they put this in, and there's an electric current that goes through this slab of concrete and keeps it warm. So when it gets really cold and you get freezing rain or snow, this chunk of concrete actually melts itself. It's had a lot of people really interested in it because first thing you think of is you're going to get electrocuted by it. The state fire marshal who oversees all the electrical coding and stuff for the state of Iowa got heavily involved along with Underwriters Laboratory. And we've got this project in and going, and we're just monitoring it to see how it's working. It's been a wonderful addition. Bridgewatch is something that the DOT put into implement. I'm trying to think how long it's been. I'm guessing 10 years the DOT's been using it, but the counties weren't part of it, and we used a project to get them on board with it. So now when a specific structure, if it's scour critical, is experiencing a flooding event, the county is now notified that structure is threatened and can go out and start looking at it and take any corrective action that they need to do to ensure that the public doesn't go across a bridge that might be close to failure. We kind of developed the centerline and edgeline runnable strips for narrow pavements. In Iowa, the county system, the pavements are typically narrower than what you would see on the state or federal system, and we developed the guidelines for how to put those on. We created temporary traffic control handbooks for all the local agencies. Instead of them dragging the MUTCD out there and trying to figure out what was the proper traffic control for what they're trying to do, we made handbooks for it so that they can put it in their pocket, they get out there, it's a quick reference, and they can start setting things up quickly to ensure the public safety and their safety. The Low Volume Road Conference, we brought that to Iowa here 2 years ago. I think that's one of the greatest things we do is when we sit and talk about various problems we have and learn from others, and we use the research money to do that here in Iowa. Low-cost rural road surface alternatives. Again, I've talked about the dust we have, and it is a big problem. And we've researched different ways that we can mitigate this and not break the bank with it. And because, again, when you've got tens of thousands of miles of it, it's a hard thing to come up with a solution. Traffic calming, we've done that coming into some of the smaller rural communities. When I was in Winnebago County, we did some of this, putting the dragon's teeth on the roadway, things like that, to try to see if it would work in these smaller communities where you're driving your open highway speeds and all of a sudden you just quickly have to come down to a 35 or 25 mile an hour speed in a small community. I list 2 lighting and safety projects there. We've done more. Those were the 2 I could find very quickly, but those really predate me. Anything in those 600s do. But another benefit we have is Iowa State University has a Transportation Research Institute. We call it Intrans, and a lot of the researchers from Iowa State are part of Intrans, and they are a resource for us to go to with just, hey, this is my problem. What do you guys know that might be able to help us? And they can really kick out answers for us quickly. We work closely with them a lot, and it's been a wonderful thing that Iowa has that. Just it's a phone call away. The stick and aid projects we've had others that are safety related. Typically, the research board is the match to those, and if you've ever applied for an aid grant, they don't seem to be very timely with the response. We're sitting on one for almost 2 years, but hopefully it'll get funded. But and we've reached out to put our money into pooled funds. One that's going right now is a wildlife road conflicts for protected species. We have places in Iowa where protected or endangered, threatened species are they're trying to cross the road, and it's not a good spot, and it's been very detrimental to them, and it's not good for the driver. So we've been looking at ways can we mitigate this problem, make it safer for everyone. So again, using pooled funds and stretching our dollars with everybody else's dollars. If you ever want to know if there's research that the Iowa Highway Research Board has done that could benefit you, go to Iowa Publications Online. If you type that into Google, it'll come up, and you can search by topic. You may get a long list, but if you got some time, you can probably get through it, and you might find exactly what you're looking for, and hopefully it will help you. But it's all out there for you. I'm not going to tell you every project that we've ever done is on there yet. We're trying to get them all out there, but some things slip through the cracks, or they've just been delayed for whatever reason. But again, if you want to look, it's there for you. We want you to use it. We hope you use it, and we hope it benefits you. So that's all I have. If you have any questions for me, I'll try to answer them as best I can. So I will turn this back over to.
Thank you, Lee. I was going to ask real quick before you change if your screen is still there, or if you could just look back a couple of slides. Could you let me know the number of the dust suppressant project?
Oh, yep. Hang on.
Someone was asking some questions about that one.
This one, TR 813, and this was done with Arizona State University.
TR 813. Okay, perfect. I found it online. So for the person who is asking more information about the dust suppressants on gravel roads, I'll drop a link into the chat pod here after we finish question and answer. But we do have a few other questions as well. So the very first thing I do want to take care of as well is that there were some things said about the Safe Streets and Roads for All grants, and we do have some comments from Federal Highway Administration through the chat pod, so I want to make sure we address that. For Safe Streets and Roads for All, the Department of Transportation cannot be an award recipient, as Lee did mention. However, they can be a partner. And so if you go to the frequently asked questions for SS4A, there are a lot of questions and answers in here about how the state DOT can and cannot participate. Again, they're not an eligible grant recipient. Only the locals and some of the metropolitan and rural planning organizations are, as well as tribes. But there is more information about how state DOTs can partner with the recipients and can even be paid to participate in some of the projects. So I will also drop the link for the frequently asked questions. That way you can take a look at that again if you're interested in applying for SS4A and had questions about how the DOT can or cannot help you with that. So we'll do that. A question for you, Lee. that came in is we have a participant watching that says their agency has jurisdiction of 752 rural road miles, 2-lane, two-way roads. And as more and more residents move into and build homes in that rural county, residents are requesting lower speeds from 55 speed limit. So some requests are for 25 and 40. The zones don't meet home and business density criteria, and the primary focus for these requests is the appearance of unsafe speeds. Have you done any research as to what kind of strategies could be explored for things like that?
We have our biggest obstacle is in Iowa code. It states that a speed study must be done before any speed limit can be imposed. I'm going to tell you that that's probably not held to the letter like it should be, but any county that wants to impose a speed limit outside of what is codified has to do one of these studies. And when I was in Winnebago County, I had many times people would ask us that, and we've done some studies. Again, looking at like the putting dragon's teeth on the road or painting a change, just something that creates a visual effect to the driver. We've looked at doing things like that to see the long-term impact of speed. We with the gravel roads, we're looking at narrowing them and giving you a restricted feel when you go down that roadway. So you tend to go a little bit slower. We're not sure how well they're going to work, but we've used lighted speed signs that flash at you, and I'll tell you that's probably been the most effective thing we've ever put out there. But again, if you have people that are requesting one and you can't get a speed study to back it in the state of Iowa, that they wanted at 25, but your speed study shows you that their mean speeds is 45, you're not going to be able to do it. It's an artificial speed, and it just puts heavier pressure on law enforcement, and that's not appropriate, and they're not going to drive it. They're just not.
And that actually leads perfectly into another question that came in, and that was what kind of pavement treatment or structure for lowering vehicle speed is dragon's teeth? Some people were unfamiliar with the term.
It's basically when we did it, it's painting little triangles on either side of the lane. So when you drive up on it, all of a sudden you see are these triangles that are on the pavement surface, and it's not paint. It's I think it was an epoxy type surface. You don't paint them on, and they last quite a while. But it gives you that shrinking feeling that these teeth are coming in. We just call it the dragon's teeth. I'm sure it has a better name than that, but that's what we've called it. And we do have a study for that. I could find it. I'd have to look it up. It's been a while since we've done that one.
And another question that came in that people were unfamiliar with was, how does the self-heating concrete work?
Ooh, boy, you're wanting getting into the deepness of it. The pavement is electrically charged. There is current going through it. One of the big issues was finding out what voltage and what current they could use. I'm not fluent enough with that research to tell you what they landed on. I know it went round and round and round for a while till they settled on where they are. I can find that data out if they need to, because that was done by Iowa State University, and like I said, the monitoring of it is going on right now.
Another question that came in, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this one or if this is one that you'd need to pass along, but someone's wondering if you were one of the people who helped put together the SS4A grant application, what are some of the technical and logistical challenges that you may have found in applying for an implementation grant at the county level?
I have not been involved in an implementation grant. The only one I was involved in was the planning grant where we wrote for 97 counties out of 99. It was tough pulling all of those counties together and making sure that they understand what they're responsible for, and that you can't change your mind once it's awarded, because everybody else could be affected by that. I can get you Fayette County's information. They're one that was successful their first time. Like I said, they got, I believe it's 15 plus million out of that grant. And I think the first part of the projects, multiple projects, but is being let this spring if it hasn't already been let. But I can get you Joel's information, and I know he'd be happy to kind of go through that with you because he's the one that put that together.
And then in that same vein as well, someone else is asking if you have any updates on when those 97 county SS4A safety plans might be completed and made available, if you know.
We expect them all this summer to be handed out to the counties so they can start using them. I'm really kind of hoping you would see some of them now, because the implementation grants are there, and that might happen. And I have not been involved in that for some time now, just because I have other things now that are my priority. But I don't have a great answer for that.
Another question that came in was, you mentioned TR 828 and 813. How do unpaved road safety strategies differ based on climate, traffic, and surface treatment materials?
Quite a bit. Iowa has, and we're not alone in this, but our geographic region is one of the worst to be in. Our freeze thaw cycles, we go through more of them than most states do. We have typically more moisture than a lot of states do. So we're built on clay. I was known for its corn because we have great soils for growing corn, not so great for building road beds. And so when to go from a gravel system to a paved system can be challenging, because it structurally, as everybody is aware, that's the big piece. So when we have a pavement that we're trying to improve, or a road that's getting traffic where we're trying to mitigate the dust, we are always battling that subsurface issue. And a lot of our research goes to base stabilization, because if we can get that tied down, or like with the organosilines, that just kind of keeps the water from really bonding into the soils, that's where we have to be first, and then we can start looking at our surfacing and what we can do with it.
And I do want to thank one of our participants. They posted a publication for me from Iowa, and I just put that in the chat pod for everyone else to see. There is a photo in that resource of what the dragon's teeth looks like. So thank you for doing that for the person who sent that in. A couple more questions that came in for you, Lee. The next one is, are Iowa counties certified to deliver federally funded projects, or is there a fund exchange through the state DOT?
There was. We do spend federal dollars through the counties. Back in 2015, we sat down with the Iowa legislature and changed Iowa code to allow primary road dollars to be spent on the secondary road system. And in doing so, we swapped out our federal dollars to the DOT. They kept all the federal money. We got primary money. And so for a while, we did not really spend federal aid dollars directly. We still got some from grants and other things, but we kind of got rid of a lot of it because it just makes life easier. When the IIJA came out, the influx of federal dollars into the state of Iowa, the DOT said we can no longer swap you guys the money anymore because they needed to keep their primary dollars to be the match money to all their new federal aid dollars. So the county started again working with bridge funds, STBG funds, HSIP. Those are probably the big three that we deal with. So we do now work again with those funds directly. DOT is our oversight. They are heavily involved, but we do work with them directly.
Perfect. Thank you, Lee. And then to answer one of the other questions that came in as well, that Lee was pointing us to a grants coordinator. She is actually attending. And so she did mention in the Q&A that Iowa's counties will start seeing draft safety action plans from SS4A this May. So just an update there as well. So thank you so much, Lee. We really appreciate taking your time today to answer all these questions for us. We will have you come back after Laura presents, just in case any other questions come up while she's presenting. So if you do have any other questions, come up with any more for Lee, please just drop those in the Q&A and we'll go ahead and get those answered after Laura presents. So our next presenter is going to be Laura Fay. She is the Cold Climate Operations and Systems Program Manager for the Western Transportation Institute. As a research scientist there, her work focuses on winter maintenance and low volume roads, and she is also the chair of the Transportation Research Board's Low Volume Roads Committee, AKD 30. And so I'm excited to turn it over now to Laura.
Thanks, Jamie. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks everyone for participating, and a huge thank you to Lee for sharing. I can tell you that as a TRB committee, with the topic being low volume roads, it's hard to get our projects funded. I know that's probably shocking, but one of the great things about the local road research boards that exist across the country is that they have helped in the past take in research needs that we've developed and carry them forward. So I'll get into that in a little bit, but there's a huge crossover between our committee and these local road research boards. So the TRB Low Volume Roads Committee, again, AKD 30, we're in the design section. We are a catch-all committee, which means we do everything that involves the entire road network, but on the low volume road network. So we have bridge people, we have safety people, we have people that are concerned about the roadside and striping, winter maintenance, plowing, dust control, everything you can imagine. So we have a very diverse committee in terms of expertise and as well as who is on the committee internationally. So that's great. We have a committee website that's listed here. I highly encourage folks to check it out. Every webinar, research needs statement, anything the committee has done, it's all on the website. And so you can go access it there. And I will move forward. Oh, okay, there we go. So another piece of our committee is that we have a joint subcommittee. And the reason I bring it up today is because it is safety focused. So the subcommittee is called the Rural Road Safety Policy Programming and Implementation Subcommittee. It's a joint subcommittee between low volume roads and transportation safety management systems. And we have liaisons that kind of float between the subcommittee and then the two parent committees. This subcommittee is great because if we have a safety topic, we can bring it to the subcommittee and then also the other safety focused committee and really get their expertise and input on how to bring this forward. Because they're a subcommittee, they don't have their own website, but we do have a link to their committee or subcommittee chairs if you're interested in either serving or participating or just in the work they do. So upcoming events with the Low Volume Roads Committee that you may be interested in, we're planning a 2025 International Low Volume Roads Virtual Symposium. So this would essentially be like a glorified webinar series. It's going to happen this summer. And the key is that it's internationally focused. So one of the wonderful things about TRB is we get a lot of participation from across the US, but it's often expensive and visa issues and whatnot and getting approvals. It kind of precludes as much international participation as we would like. So what we're doing is we're inviting international folks to present on the work they're doing. So at this point in time, we're reaching out to folks from Europe, South America, Central America, New Zealand, you name it. And right now we are targeting having 3 to 4 speakers per day. And we're not sure the number of days, but it'll be anywhere from 2 to 4 days in a week. And the themes are funding and resources, innovations and technological applications, building resiliency, and roadside safety. So we have a whole day that could potentially be about safety. So if you are someone that is aware of international safety research or applications or programs, reach out to me. I'd love to hear about it and potentially get them on the list for that day. In conjunction with this symposium, we're going to do a mid-year meeting. So if you're interested in participating in the committee or just learning about it, you're welcome to attend. And this will be free. We will be, again, hosting this virtually, recording the sessions and posting them to our LVR website. So if you can't attend live, you can watch them after the fact. The impetus for this was actually the Low Volume Roads conference that Lee mentioned that we had just in Iowa, and was that 2023, is wonderful, but it's every 4 years. And so we wanted to kind of have an update to what's going on in the Low Volume Roads community, maybe every 2 years. So this will kind of, hopefully throughout the future, be kind of a fill-in of what's going on with Low Volume Roads research as we move forward. So a highlight, kind of, this is very high level of what we as the committee do. Part of what we do is we develop research needs statements. And I pulled a few that directly apply to safety, but there have been many that are loosely tied or indirectly tied to safety. One RNS that was recently developed with the safety group was the use of narrow width rumble strips. This was submitted through TRB. It was not selected, but it could be revisited, or someone else could take it and run with this research idea. Again, it's on our website, and it's also on the TRB research needs statement. It's within that database. So you can go in there and you can view the full content of the RNS there. One that's been archived, which means it was developed, posted to the RNS database, but then not selected, or there was no action taken for quite a while, 5 to 10 years. We archived it. And that one is titled Systematic Identification of Safety Issues on Low Volume Roads and Their Relationship to Geometry. So again, this is an idea. It wasn't necessarily selected for funding, but if this intrigues you, if you have interest, you can take this idea and run with it. These were developed by topic experts. And just because it was not selected by AASHTO for funding through TRB does not mean it's an important and needed research idea. So we strongly encourage graduate students, new researchers, LRBs, to look in the RNS database if there are similar project ideas or if they're just looking for project ideas. Recently, in the last year, the Low Volume Roads put together an RNS that was selected for funding. It's titled Best Practices on Pavement Design and Evaluation of Low Volume Roads with Heavy Loads. Tangentially related to safety, but that project is ongoing and should be wrapped by the end of the year, maybe early into 2026. But there is a similar topic workshop that's being planned at the TRB annual meeting for 2026. So if this is of interest to you, stay tuned and more information will be coming out. As I mentioned, the Low Volume Roads Committee does not always have projects selected for funding, but one thing we are really good at as a committee is putting webinars together. We've traditionally have at least 2, maybe 3 or 4 per year through TRB. And again, we post those to our website, so you can go back and access those. Right now, we're working on one. We've asked graduate students to put in their research ideas for presentation. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to foster that next generation of transportation researchers and engineers and get them a platform to share their work. So not only do they get to share the work they're doing, but they gain that experience as well. So this, we've just submitted the first in a series of these, so stay tuned. I'll share through Jamie once that's approved in the dates. We have also, in the upcoming year, there will be a webinar on drone use, so UAVs on LVRs, so low volume road applications. That one is not scheduled yet, but it has been selected. So again, stay tuned. I'll share that date with Jamie when that does come out. And one that will be scheduled in June or July is the 4th in a series of webinars on climate and resiliency. And the last 3 webinars on this topic can be accessed through our website. And this will be the 4th and last on this topic. So very exciting. A lot of great work from federal and international agencies on that. So a big part of why I was excited that Jamie asked us to present and be a part of this is we are always looking for collaborations. Whether it's a research needs statement, if you have an idea, or if you have a problem that you want this professional group to help you develop into a research idea, we're happy to do that. Bring that forward to us. We're always looking for groups to plan workshops or conference sessions at the TRB annual meeting or at the every 4-year Low Volume Roads Conference. Again, I mentioned those webinars. You only need 2 to 3 speakers to put together a webinar if you have a topic. It could be your work or it could be about a project you were a part of. You could also become a volunteer or friend of the committee. And then once you put in some volunteer time, we're always looking for members as well. And we like a huge mix of different agencies, whether that's private or public sector, federal, state, local, international. So please reach out if you're interested. We're always looking for people to host the next Low Volume Roads Conference. Lee mentioned that they hosted the 2023 conference. I actually, through WTI, we hosted the 2019 conference in Montana. So we are looking maybe to go somewhere a little out of the Midwest/West region for our next conference, which tentatively should be 2026. Again, if you're looking to present your work or if you just want to talk or have other ideas, I've included my email here. And you can also access myself, the research coordinator, and our web person through the website. So I believe that's all I have to share, and I'm happy to take any questions or thoughts.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Laura. And for everyone, I did drop a few links while Laura was talking into the chat pod for you. So there is the Iowa Publications Online link. I did put the Low Volume Roads website, which Laura referred to, in the chat pod as well. So if you do have any questions for Laura, please put those in the Q&A pod and we'll get those answered for you. And while we're waiting to see if any come in, Lee, we do have one more question that came in for you. And that was, does Iowa have an interim or experimental approval for the use of the Dragon's Teeth treatment from Federal Highway?
I'm not exactly sure I'm following the question. I mean, it was done through our research board and the researchers from Iowa State University. So I'm not positive what they're asking, I guess.
I think what is being asked is that if it's not in the manual on uniform traffic control devices, further use would require a interim or experimental approval that FHWA has provided. So they're
Yeah,
looking to see, if that exists.
I'm not sure. I believe it does, but I'm not going to stand fast and say that's
Perfect. So if the person who was asking that question would like us to look further into it, please just let us know and we can do that. But just a reminder for everyone, although we did share the research on that, making sure that you're only using the techniques that are available and allowed through the new version of the manual on uniform traffic control devices. All right, let's see. It does not look like we have had any other questions come in for either Laura or Lee. So we are going to go ahead and get wrapped up. Again, just a reminder, SS4A is open if you're interested in applying for that. Please watch those webinars that they've put out. Please take a look at the frequently asked questions. Things have changed between the last notice of funding and this current one. So please make sure that you're up to date on all of the new requirements and any other frequently asked questions. And then I am also just being told in the chat pod as well that while it doesn't appear Dragon's Teeth are approved in the MUTCD, there are similar speed reduction markings that are approved. So for anyone interested in that technique, take a look at the MUTCD. And as I finish up here, I will post a link to the MUTCD as well. So we will be announcing our May webinar here shortly. We hope to see you all there. And thank you again to Lee and Laura for presenting. Take a look at the Iowa Research Board's publications and check out the Low Volume Roads website and keep an eye out for their upcoming symposium. So thank you, Laura and Lee.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm going to drop this MUTCD link in the chat real quick, and then thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate it. See you next month.